Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, the voices of Iranians inside and outside a country at war.
It has nothing to do with liberating Iranian people. They don't care about Iranian people at all. They would sooner see us all dead than come forward about the crimes that they've committed.
As U.S. and Israeli bombs fall across Iran, what about the people caught in the middle and the millions of Iranians watching from abroad? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Hey, everyone. As you're watching today's conversation, join it. Let us know what questions you have about what's happening in Iran right now. Leave us a comment or leave us a review on your podcast app as you listen. And if you can, give us a 5-star rating while you're there. It helps the show reach more listeners.
My name is Yara El-Jewy, and I am a senior producer and presenter with AJ Plus English.
Yara, welcome back to The Take. It's really nice to have you, especially now because you are doing a service to so many people on social media, sharing with the world what people in Iran and connected to Iran are thinking and saying right now. Walk me through what it's like to get in touch with family and friends and contacts in Iran these days.
Honestly, it's been very difficult. For one, what I've learned, and I've kind of confirmed this with other Iranians that I've spoken to in the diaspora, we cannot make calls from the United States to Iran through a landline at this current moment. I don't know why that is.
This call is being routed by Google. The cost of this call is 15 cents per minute.
So they, however, can make calls in Iran outside of the country to us. So I've actually been getting updates from my mom, for example. So she gets calls from her sister, who then updates us on the safety of our family, making sure people are, can't believe it's come to this, but making sure people are still alive. I did, however, receive randomly a voice note from a relative this morning, unexpectedly. So it does appear that there are spurts or brief moments of internet connectivity. I then immediately asked him how he managed to connect. And that message still on WhatsApp has 1 check mark, meaning it's not been delivered.
You are in New York right now. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn.
Well, Yara, a lot of this conversation is going to be you taking us behind the scenes into your group chats, into your DMs, what you're seeing.
Totally. And also there's little bits and pieces on social media that I'm going to try to attribute weight to each one. I've been seeing reactions of terror, of horror, of people not believing what is happening to Tehran. You're seeing footage on Instagram, pieces of it that are being uploaded, places that I have walked through in Tehran. To see them destroyed. I think I saw one that was near Ferdowsi Square. That's actually where it's kind of crazy to think, one of my favorite Mexican restaurants in Tehran is. It's an old restaurant. My mother actually used to dance with her friends on the dance floor of that restaurant before the revolution. Oh. After the revolution, the new regime sort of banned dancing in public spaces, especially for women. So then it became sort of a Mexican restaurant, but that dance floor is still there. Anyways, you can see because the tiles are different. And that's next to Ferdowsi Square, and I'm seeing photos of a place that appears to be near Ferdowsi Square that is completely destroyed. And then on the other hand, you're seeing other emotions. There are some Iranians who have been celebrating the assassination of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. It's important to also note that, this leader, specifically in Iran, many Iranians have a very negative view of him. There's been it was a brutal massacre that took place in January, thousands of Iranians killed in this very violent crackdown. So you're seeing that response. And some Iranians, again, we really have to try to disconnect our personal opinions sometimes when things are rapidly unfolding here. Right. Some Iranians have been excited, hoping that something like this may lead to something better. But of course, we know, as folks who do have the privilege of being one step removed, having watched what has happened in Iraq and Libya and all these other countries, and having experts and political analysts and historians weigh in, that in the vast majority, if not all cases, these wars spiral out of control. And that initial glee in the first few days, things do not necessarily turn out the way that one would hope.
Yeah.
But Iran, people, I feel like, there's sort of a misconception here. Iran is actually quite safe. Me, as an Iranian who's 35 years old, in my lifetime, I have not witnessed, having lived and worked in Iran, having traveled to Iran, spent years of my life across various moments of my life in the country. We do not know war like this. Guns are forbidden in Iran. I feel safer in the streets of Tehran when I was living there than I did in New York in some places. And now all of a sudden in the past year with the Trump administration, all of a sudden this country where we would just not fathom the connection to war after the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, of course, is now just parts of it, are in ruins. Sorry, that was a very long response, but it's
a lot. I appreciate you taking us into that. One of the things that you've been doing is talking very publicly about the danger of flattening all of those various pieces you just talked about into one story, the danger of reducing Iran to a simple binary. You wrote recently in a piece you did for AJ Plus, stop dismissing the lived reality of Iranians because of a false binary, that you either support imperialism or you're an authoritarian apologist. What do you mean by that?
I think with Iran, we often find ourselves viewing the news through sort of this prism, and we all have our own prisms, right? And we view the news through that prism and through the issues that are important to us. We have a whole slew of people, as we all know, that see news in Iran, see news break out. Again, news is happening. It's out of our control. And they'll say, is this good for the regime in Iran or is this bad for the regime in Iran? If I have the prism of, is this good for Palestine? Is this bad for Palestine? I view something that happens in Iran. Is this good for imperialism? Is this bad for imperialism? And so there's a lot of sort of geopolitical thoughts of people decide to share things on the basis of whether it aligns with their politics. People decide to accept the validity and the veracity of certain news on the basis of whether it aligns with their personal geopolitical goal or whether it does not align with that goal. And this creates, I think, unfortunately, a number of false narratives. I am, for example, on the receiving end of some very angry DMs from people and also some very nice ones. I'm going to be honest. I've been quite uplifted by some of them, but I'll share footage or, let's say the school attack. Folks have been sharing some really, horrifying images and videos of the school attack that happened during the opening salvo of this war.
Around 170 people were killed when a strike hit a girls' school on Saturday. Most of the victims were children.
And now we have some people saying, why are you sharing this? You're supporting the regime's narrative. That was an inside job, that the regime did. And yes, that is a real phenomenon happening. Or you're sharing videos and footage of destruction caused by the bombs. And they're saying, why are you sharing this? People hate the regime. This is not, you're just playing into the regime narrative. And we have folks on the other side, right, who are then saying, why are you ignoring the real ills of war? This is a war of choice launched by Israel and the United States. And you're ignoring that people are dying in Tehran. So again, I think what the reality of it is that this is war. This is war. People are going to die. People are dying. Innocent civilians. Currently, we have the estimate as of today, over 1,000 civilians have been killed so far. It's according to the human rights activist news agency and a variety of other outlets. Democracy Now! Also ran the news and a couple other outlets as well. At the same time, this does not negate the fact that this is also a very repressive regime. These two things we have to be able to understand. This is a repressive regime. Many Iranians are dissatisfied and would like transformative change. By the same token, the U.S. and Israel, they do have their, imperialist aims, or however you want to describe them. Their aims may not align with the aims of many people in Iran. And so it's hard. We have to hold these marbles in our hands at the same time. And unfortunately, every bit and piece of news that you share is viewed as you being this way or the other way. Whereas I'm a journalist. I'm trying to share news, but also paint the very stark, real reality of war.
Well, Yara, I'm wondering if there is a difference that you're seeing in those stark divisions between Iranians in the diaspora and Iranians in Iran, because I think there can be a tendency to see either images or pictures or get a narrative and then think oh, that's the majority. That's the majority of what Iranians in Iran think, or this is the majority of what Iranians outside of the country think?
It's tricky, I have to say. And I think there's sort of sometimes this binary of like, okay, people in diaspora are disconnected, people in Iran know what's going on. But I feel as more time goes on, that narrative, I really don't think is true. And maybe 20 years ago, there was a little more truth to it. And yes, there's obviously going to be some disconnection from people who live outside of the country. There's no doubt about that. But I've been seeing a variety of opinions inside Iran, and those opinions reflected in the diaspora, and diaspora opinions, again, in Iran. And I think this has in part to do with media diets. I believe media now, through social media, we are sometimes consuming, whether in the diaspora or in Iran, across languages, the same media. And the Iranian media space is funded by all manner of different folks. There are outside countries that are funding Persian language media outlets that then have an English equivalent to them as well. And they are funded with the interests of whoever their funders are.
Right.
That's kind of just how media outlets work, and from many, many centuries ago to today. And so that's why I think there's a lot. So what are we seeing? There were definitely many celebrations in the diaspora when the supreme leader was assassinated. And this is documented in Toronto and Paris and Los Angeles. You have to remember that many Iranians who are in the diaspora are refugees, people who have fled Iran, or people who have also willingly immigrated for opportunity, for safety, security. We're seeing the lack of that right now in Iran. And so the diaspora community overall in general is, I would say, quite secular. And so that's just kind of an image. They have left Iran seeking opportunity, safety, what have you. And then also in Iran, we see those celebrations. There's numerous accounts. There was a lot of celebration when that happened. On the other hand, I also don't want to paint the diaspora as this monolithic entity. I am part of the diaspora. There are many Iranian anti-war activists, anti-war people with an anti-war bent, of those who understand the impact of war in the diaspora as well. And they are also speaking out about this. Similar in Iran, we're seeing accounts of people who are utterly terrified. I'm seeing numerous reports of Iranians, again, as this war wears on, even some of those who may have celebrated in those early days. Again, I am seeing some shifts in that, just in terms of social media opinions. And this is a very predictable trajectory with these sorts of things. We just had, the Trump administration start off by hoping that this was going to be a Venezuela-style operation. Then they say it would be 4 weeks. Just Peter Hegseth just came out today and suggested it may last up to 8 weeks. This is a war that is spiraling out of control, and opinion is going to reflect that the longer it wears on.
Well, Yara, we have seen some horrific stories emerging from inside Iran. You mentioned earlier your memories of Firdausi Square in Tehran and an attack nearby. So there's a video posted on Instagram, and this is on Al Jazeera English's Instagram account. And a witness describes U.S. and Israeli strikes hitting civilians in Firdausi Square. And she's distraught. Understandably, she talks about people rushing to help survivors from one attack when another strike hit minutes later.
This is something I'm seeing more and more, this double tap or multiple tap strikes. So I've seen a couple accounts, and before I kind of speak out just by seeing something one time, I do make sure I try to see it again. I did notice that former CNN international correspondent Reza Sayyah had also posted about this. So this that I'm referring to is this sort of double tap phenomenon, which is basically a technique that Israel has used in Gaza. You bomb a place, and then as emergency responders come to the scene, bystanders come to the scene, maybe people who were bombed in the scene are trying to leave, whatever it is, they bomb again. So a double strike, a double tap. And I've spoken to a journalist friend, an Iranian journalist friend who's covering this. I've seen Reza Sayyah's comments, and I've seen this video of this woman describing it. So it's not just an isolated case where, okay, well, she said it. Well, how do we know it's happening? It's fundamentally something that I'm seeing repeated. And so, these are things that I'm seeing. It is, again, very concerning, horrifying, especially as an Iranian, to see, a city that you know and you love and you've lived in and you've commuted in. And these are real landmarks, real places, people's families being killed, and it I don't have any words, and I never would have imagined that. It's crazy. All of us who are in these scenarios, right? Whether it's Iran or Gaza, Ukraine, whatever it happens to be, we think back and we're like, wow, what we never would have imagined. Wow, I can't,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah. Right. Well, Yara, you touched on this, and so I'm wondering if you can take us a little deeper, because what we are seeing from inside Iran via people like you and others who are sharing on social media comes via voice notes, videos, posts from people who we believe might be on the ground. But the space is also so full of misinformation and recycled footage, as any conflict online is. So when you're reporting on something that is this fast moving and this important, how do you decide who and what to trust?
So for me, there's a couple things, and I tried to actually scroll back or recognize what kind of content these sources are posting. There's a lot of pages, as you mentioned. I do open them. I scroll through their posts and see what kinds of material are they posting. For example, I might see someone share something. There's been a lot of AI videos. There's a lot of AI videos of, let's say, the immense destruction, that is being caused by Iranian drones and missiles. In other places like, let's say, Israel, right? And there's been a number of AI generated ones that show very massive explosions. And so then if you click on that page, what else are they sharing? Oh, looks like they have some other AI videos. Or maybe, they have, maybe you click on a page that's posting something about Iran, and they're posting pictures of the crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, or the so-called crown prince, Reza Pahlavi. And they're praising him. And so then you kind of get an understanding of, okay, this person is of this particular bent. Then you might click through another page and they might be, denying that, a genocide has happened in Palestine, right? So I tried to do this, for one, to just see what is the ideological bent of this page and can I trust it? The other sort of element, I'd say, I do try to make sure there is consistency in coverage. When I see that consistency, I feel confident in knowing that this person is posting real, to the best of our ability, verifiable, accurate news and photos, without a sort of ideological bent that might lead them to view things through that prism we talked about. Is this good for my political thing, or is this bad for my political thing?
Well, Yara, I want to end with a post on X. It is purported to be from an Iranian user in Tehran. And of course, you will do the due diligence and let us know whether or not it is. But the sentiment here is what I actually want to focus on. And so Sarah Halimzadeh on March 2nd writes, this is translated from Farsi via X. Are there any Iranians abroad who actually, I'm going to improvise here and say, who actually care about our lives and sanity? Why should we bear the full cost of toppling the regime while you sit back in comfort, popping champagne and celebrating? Why don't you come on over and take a share of the death toll? It's this sentiment of wondering if anyone outside is watching, is caring, is connecting, which, of course, is the whole point of social media in the first place. What do you think? What goes through your mind when you read or see a post like that, especially given the hurdles you talked about earlier of connecting to people in Iran and having them connect with you?
Yeah, I think it's a reflection and it's opinion we're going to be seeing, my assessment, we're going to be seeing more of in the coming days, because this war is not going to be a multi-day war. Again, Peter Hegseth just suggested that it could be as long as 8 weeks. And who knows by tomorrow, given the Trump administration's ever-shifting goalposts, which don't seem to be clearly defined, that may change again. And it may be a multi-month war. We don't know. The fact of the matter is the people who are paying the cost of this war are the Iranian people. And I don't want to, that phrase is often used, the Iranian people, but this literally is people in Iran who are Iranian, are paying the cost of this. But the tweet itself or the X post, whatever I guess we call it nowadays, that you referred to is reflecting a very real phenomenon, that Iranians are going to die in Iran while the rest of us, have our opinions and exchange barbs with each other on Twitter or X or Instagram or TikTok or what have you. And the other thing I need to stress is that it's a reflection of the very real cost of war. War is not, there have been anti-war voices out there who have been pilloried for being, seen as pro-regime. You're just going to strengthen the regime and all you want. And there were years, for example, when the June War broke out in 2025, years and years of many, many anti-war activists and many reporters who wrote about the possibility of war breaking out if diplomacy were to fail. They were pilloried as pro-regime maniacs, supporters, blah, 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 blah. And then we saw June break out. And then we saw the real prospect of a war expanding. Now, that war ended in 12 days. This one now could continue for much longer. Iran, Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, what have you, a lived-in place that many of us know very closely. Parts of it are already looking like scenes from Gaza. And that is a very real reality of war. Again, you saw it in Iraq. We've seen it in Libya. We've seen it in Syria. We've seen it again and again and again. And this notion that Iran is somehow immune to this is, and I do want to stress before we kind of part, I don't want to spread, alarmism and all that. Again, my reflection to you of these facts is based on scholarship, is based on history, is based on what I've seen in my life. And again, I'm trying not to really inject opinion into this. I'm holding my face and putting my fingers on my eyes because we know where this goes.
Yara, thank you for the work you're doing, and our thoughts go out to your friends and family in Iran.
Thank you so much, Malika. I really appreciate you.